What is going on, beautiful people? We're going to do the intro. Yeah. Welcome to Only Football with Kyle. Jinja already in the chat. What's up, you beautiful bastards? Oh, it's good to be back in the studio. It's good to see you, Ginge. Man, it's been a crazy week. There's been some stories come out that couldn't be confirmed, like Bill Belichick potentially shopping Mac Jones. I mean, we're going to get into all of that, but I kind of wanted to start with the Austin Eckler thing because a couple episodes ago, I had made a comment that, what's up, Bill? Good to have you in here. We had a debate going about, is Mike Williams more valuable than Austin Eckler? And you guys know probably where I stood. I said Austin Eckler is the most valuable person on that team, not named Justin Herbert. And I wanted to back up what I was saying with stats instead of just having an opinion about it. But before I get into that, I wanted to go over Austin Eckler's comments that he made regarding the contract just recently. So they asked him about the contract situation, and this was his comments. Time will play out. Who knows? We'll see what happens with the draft, but it's a situation where, look, if a team wants me in the long term, it's a year where they're going to have to give up picks, and then they're going to have to renegotiate. That kind of thing is playing against us for sure, but we'll see. Like I said, time will tell. We'll see what happens after the draft. So pretty much, Austin Eckler understands that if there is a deal going to be made for him, it's going to happen after the draft. So a lot of teams are going to draft running backs, stuff like that. So he's at this point, he's a veteran, and he knows what the deal is. So he knows nobody's calling to secure a long-term deal until after the draft. They may have circled a person on the draft board, and if they're not available, then they're going to move on and maybe give Eckler a call. So they also kept going in on this. He said, look, I guess the worst case scenario right now out of it all, I'll come back and I'll have to play for the Chargers for a year and bet on myself and then be a free agent. So no holdout at risk here if you're a Chargers fan, which if you are, go Broncos. So no holdout situation, which is something I always think is actually good for the player's value, to see that your player is not going to just sit out if he doesn't get what he wants because he is invested into the team overall. I think generally that's a good look to have. So Austin Eckler saying a couple key words in the sentence, though. He says, the worst case scenario, I'll have to play for the Chargers. Not that I get to play for the Chargers. The worst case is that he has to. His back's against the wall. He's also made comments that have been something like, the Chargers has always been my home. I would like a deal to go with the Chargers. Well, that stuff's just like, the PR team telling you this is what you want to say. And plus, you don't want to disappoint the fan base that's wearing your jerseys. I could understand that and appreciate it. But let's be perfectly clear. Austin Eckler does not want to be a Charger. And he does not feel that he is getting the value back financially that he's giving to the team. And he goes on to say, as he did in late March, Eckler explained that even after his fruitless discussions with the Chargers left him feeling like, I kind of got punched in the face, his exact words, he doesn't despise the Chargers organization. However, he's come to the realization he likely won't receive what he's seeking financially from the Bolts. Even if deep down he doesn't want to leave the only team which he's ever professionally played for. So he does feel like he's been punched in the face a little bit. And I made the comment that if you had to pay one of these players, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, or Austin Eckler, for me, it's a no-brainer. It's Austin Eckler. And I got a lot of pushback from that, so I wanted to go a little bit more into this. So I looked up because Austin Eckler, he is not just a rusher, and I mentioned this in the debate. He is a passing running back. When Justin Herbert got hurt, I think it was week 2, where he broke a rib against the Chiefs on the Thursday night Amazon Prime opening, he was not even able, I'm talking about Herbert, wasn't able to throw the ball downfield. So almost everything was a dump off. Was a dump off. So Bill, I see you're coming right here. He says, is he on the tag? No, he's currently under contract. And Ginger goes, I cracked a new Fruit Force Ranger at the same time. Cheers, buddy. Love it. Absolutely love it. So look at this, though. Okay. This is a list because, like I said, he's a passing running back. He doesn't just run the football. Okay. So what I did to get an accurate assessment of his value is I looked up all-purpose yards. Who's leading the league in all-purpose yards? And I'll say flat out, he has not been the number one player in the league in all-purpose yards since he's taken over from Melvin Gordon. But what he's done is also, in my opinion, more impressive. In 2022, the all-purpose leaders was Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, CMC, Justin Jefferson. Now, Justin Jefferson had 1,800 yards receiving, not rushing, okay? But he makes this list because all-purpose yards. So this is just take all your yard and put them in a pile and see who has the most. So Tyreek Hill's right underneath Justin Jefferson. So if you're not Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill, like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, you're not that valuable. You're not getting Justin Jefferson yards. You're not getting Tyreek Hill yards even. Okay, then it goes on to Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, and Austin Eckler. So Austin Eckler was 8th this year in all-purpose yards. In 2021, he missed one game because of COVID, and he finished 7th in all-purpose yards. Number 1 was Jonathan Taylor, then Cooper Kupp on that historical Triple Crown season. Deebo Samuel, Najee Harris, Justin Jefferson, Cordell Patterson, then Austin Eckler came in at 7th. 2020, he had a hamstring injury, so he missed 6 games. So he wasn't on the top 10 that list. And then 2019, he finished 10th. And 2018, he was behind Melvin Gordon. So what is my point? My point is this. You have Austin Eckler, top 10 in all-purpose yards every single season since he's taken over for Melvin Gordon, besides the hamstring injury in 2020, because he missed 6 games that season. So when I looked at these other players like Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, I looked carefully to try to see if anybody else has been on this list even 3 times in the last 4 years. And I was able to find Chubb. So these are the only other players that are even remotely as consistent as Austin Eckler. Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb has been as consistent, and he's on a lot of these top 10 lists. But Nick Chubb is making $12 million a year. And that's exactly double the amount that Austin Eckler is making. Eckler is making $6 million a year. So you could understand why he wants to be paid differently. Okay? CMC, he was another person that he's had his injuries, but when he's healthy, he's on the list. He's on the top 10 list. He's making $16 million a year. So he's making $10 million more than Austin Eckler. $10 million for a running back is a lot of money. A lot of running backs, if they sign a 4-year, $40 million deal, that's a good contract. That's the amount, $10 million more than Eckler for CMC. Henry's on the list, but he's making 12.5 a year, so just a little bit over double Austin Eckler's salary. So my point is this. Austin Eckler is a lot more valuable than he is being paid. And if that's not even clear enough, Miles Sanders is making more money than Austin Eckler. Miles Sanders hasn't been top 10 in all-purpose yards on the top 10 list since Eckler took over for Melvin Gordon, not even one time. So if you're a player that or a fan that believes that players should be getting paid, the right amount of value, like Austin Eckler, sometimes me and Rick talk about these players that are in the middle of a contract and we say, man, just like play out your contract. You know what I mean? Like you sign the contract, play it out. But then you see the other side of it where when the players are loyal, they end up getting screwed. I mean, Austin Eckler has been showing up playing for $6 million a year, and he's been doing a damn good job at what he does. And he had to go approach them and say, "Hey, I noticed that Nick Chubb, CMC, Derrick Henry, all the guys that are doing what I do, they make double and then some what I'm making. Could you guys fix this for me?" And the Chargers said no. The contract negotiations went bad. So if you still think that Keenan Allen and Mike White are more valuable than Austin Eckler, think again. It's not even close. And I'll also add this. They're great receivers, okay? I'm not hating on Austin or on those two, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. But you have to understand that when you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert, and I don't want you to get carried away, like you still want to put talent around him, but you do have the luxury to put B receivers on the field and still get A type production. And I believe in Justin Herbert. He's thrown over 4,000 yards every single year that he's been a starter, broke a world record for throwing that many yards year after year after year since being a rookie. So I just feel like this is silly at this point. And Austin Eckler's not going to end up probably getting paid by the Chargers. So I think this is even more tricky because if you really look at it, when do running backs fall apart? I'd say maybe Austin Eckler is getting close to that, right? So like I would say 2 years ago, he might have been at his like peak value. But then 2 years before that, he signed the 4-year deal. So the Chargers, they did a good job on it as far as the front office goes. They paid him at the right time when they knew that he was special, and they got rid of Mr. Melvin Fumble Gordon. And, you know, honestly, if he would have waited just 2 more years and got tagged or something like that, he could have gotten a deal like Chubb and CMC. But he's still playing at a high level, and he's not going to just sit back and watch all of his buddies, get generational wealth while, he makes half of what they make. And especially with his credentials, I just don't see what the issue is. So if you would want a guy like Austin Eckler on your team, Bill, Saquon Barkley, you don't need him. Jinja, you got Jonathan Taylor, who was number 1 in 2021 in all-purpose yards. And just, I don't really know what happened. I guess the offensive line's really bad. It was weird to see him go from number 1 to not even top 10. So I started thinking, like, what teams could use him? And I'm like, well, every team could use him, but who does it make a lot of sense that he goes to? I thought of the Rams. I thought if he would kind of get like a two-headed monster thing going over there, I think that could be good. Seattle maybe even with what's his name? The rookie last year. I had him on my fantasy team. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. Kenneth Walker. Maybe that would be good, but that's my take on the Chargers thing. I'm going to hit some of these comments. Bill said he really want to try the running back market pay this year. That's bold. Yeah, I think the way he's looking at it is you can only go up from what he's being paid. And you see players just the market the market's getting really weird. I mean, you think about the quarterback market, and I don't think we truly understood the ramifications that were going to follow from Deshaun Watson's deal. We knew it was a big contract and it was a lot of guaranteed money, but I just don't think we fully understood how much it was going to affect other players on other organizations. And you're seeing that with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is wanting to get a Deshaun Watson contract, but look at this, okay? If you look up the teams that are paying their quarterbacks the most, you'll find that none of those teams are contending for a Super Bowl. The Packers missed the playoffs last year. Aaron Rodgers was the most paid. Russell Wilson was right behind him, and we don't even need to talk about that one. Deshaun Watson obviously didn't play all year, but even when he was playing, it was nothing like crazy special. Maybe we'll see what happens this year. And then you get to Josh Allen, and it's like, okay, you could make an argument that Josh Allen is worth what they're paying him, and then Mahomes. But here's the thing. You don't want to use Mahomes is a 1 in a million, right? You can't evaluate the whole thing based on Mahomes. Like Mahomes is a shot in the dark. And even if you look at Mahomes, he got paid 10 years so that there would be money. It was cap friendly and stuff like that. These quarterbacks that are trying to get paid absurd amounts of money because Deshaun Watson literally destroyed the market with his contract, I think all reasonably smart general managers understand that teams that pay their quarterback a lot of money don't end up contending. This is something Tom Brady understood. So I don't really think this really applies too much to the running backs, because when you look at running backs, I mean, CMC is the highest paid running back and he's making 16 million a year. Like, running backs don't get paid that much. Even, I mean, who do you think is more valuable to their team? CMC in San Francisco or Tyreek Hill in Miami? Because Tyreek Hill is making what, 40 million a year? So I mean, that's a reasonable question to ask, and you might even have to think about it for a while. But when you look at how much more money receivers make compared to running backs, I find it kind of strange. And I do think that there's going to come a time where somebody's going to pay a running back. I'm not going to say 40 million a year, but it's almost like everybody's just kind of accepted this truth that running backs don't get paid that well. And when I say that well, I mean, of course, for me, it's a ton of money, but like compared to the other players in the NFL, running backs don't really get paid. I mean, CMC 16 million, that's like the highest it goes. So I even think when you got running backs that deserve to be paid, it should be even easier to meet them in the middle, because it doesn't take that much to pay a running back another 6 million a year. I mean, if you have to cut Mike White or Keenan Allen, let's see this really quick. Mike White or Mike Williams. Let's see what Mike Williams' salary is. Okay, here you go. In 2023, it says a base salary of $1 million, but a restructured bonus of 10.9 million, while carrying a cap hit of 13 million. So, okay, so Mike Williams is on a 3-year, $60 million deal. So he's basically making like $20 million a year. Okay. So you're paying Austin Eckler $6 million, and you're paying Mike Williams $20 million a year. He gets hurt a lot. I mean, you cut Mike Williams, you can pay Austin Eckler the other $6 million. Okay, because if you cut him, let's say there's an extra, let's just use this exact number, 13 million. That's what we have to work with here. Okay, we're gonna give Eckler 6. He's making 12 million a year. Maybe he wants 14. Sure. We're going to give him $8 million. We're going to give Austin Ekeler $8 million out of the 13.5 that we have. So now we have 5.3 left over. We're going to draft a young wide receiver. We're going to pay him $5 million on his rookie contract. Bill's saying there's 3 running backs that are probably going to play on a $10 million tag, all because of this. Barkley, Tony Pollard, and Josh Jacobs. And you still have Zeke, right? Because whoever picks him up is going to have to restructure too. So, Bill, why do you say that they're going to play on a tag because of Austin Ekeler? Because I would think that you would want to pay your running backs before Austin Ekeler gets paid. Because if Austin Ekeler gets paid and resets the market, now, if you're a Giants fan, now there's a new ceiling to what you have to pay Barkley. Now there's a new ceiling to what you have to pay Pollard if you're a Cowboys fan, and so on with the Raiders. So I'm interested to see your perspective on why you're saying that it would like kind of affect the other one. And while Bill gets to that, I got to tell you guys, I woke up this morning and I got some bad football news. It was a sad day to be a Denver Broncos fan today because what is going on? I've never had that happen before. It was a sad day to be a Denver Broncos fan this morning because when I woke up, I saw the news that today John Elway is no longer a part of the Denver Broncos front office. And there was just something about John Elway being in the building that always made it feel like home. Like if Denver is losing a game, if they're close in a game, they're winning a game, they're taking knees, they point the camera up to the booth. John Elway's sitting there with a drink and a solo cup, dipping discreetly and not spitting when somebody tells him he's on camera. And you know what? In memory of John Elway, we're Perna, yeah. Doesn't surprise me that he jumped on that. It was a sad day for us. So, get a couple of these for John Elway. So, I'm going to go through a little bit of John Elway's time with the Broncos. You could call this an unofficial tribute to John Elway, okay? So, anyway, what I was saying, though, they're taking a knee, whatever. They point the camera up. They show John Elway, and it just felt like, I mean, you're talking about a guy that played 16 seasons with the Broncos and went to 5 Super Bowls and won 2 back-to-back. Has a statue outside the building. And it just having him in the building just felt like you're just a part of rich history, okay? And it just made sense for him to take that job. And I'll say this, because it is going to kind of be a tribute. But first, let me just report the freaking news, okay? So James Palmer, who's the NFL insider for the Denver Broncos, he said, I've enjoyed the relationship with the Broncos for a long time. Elway, 62 years old, by the way. He said in an interview with 9 News on Tuesday, I told Greg, talking about Greg Penner, the owner, I'd be happy to be a resource for him to help in any way that I can. I just wanted the flexibility. They're in great hands. I still plan on being around for a while, and basically he's saying he's going to be around to watch and be a resource for CEO Greg Penner, general manager George Payton. And this, I guess, this was kind of part of the news that bothered me or made me sad is that you have this new organization coming in. Pat Bowlen passes away. John Elway's kind of like the glue holding everything together. Then Walmart buys the team. John Elway contract expires. And it just really does feel like we have turned a corner. And kids that are Bronco fans right now that are growing up, let's say they became a Broncos fan from the day they were 6 years old, okay? And they watched all the games. Like when I was 5 years old, I watched every Broncos game. And my family can testify to that. I never missed a game. I was diehard. It was the weirdest thing because what kind of 5-year-old can, just be that dedicated to something? That's why I always say the Broncos chose me. I didn't choose the Broncos. So, I mean, if a kid grew up at 5 years old watching the Denver Broncos, okay, that means he would be 12 years old today and he had never seen the Broncos even go to the playoffs. And now that kid's going to turn 13 and John Elway's not there. Pat Bowlen's not there. Von Miller's not there. And it just feels like I'm always going to love the Broncos, but I'm feeling like that old guy that is kind of like, yeah, Walmart came in and bought everything. Like people that own their own land and then some real estate company wants to tear everything down and build up these, tall condos and destroy the place that you knew. And I'm not saying that they're doing that, but it does feel a little bit like, I don't know. It just feels a little sad, kind of in that way. So I will say that John Elway's, and I wrote a little something here. Let's say John Elway's time in as a general manager was fruitful. And even though that things haven't been great so far, I would say it was my entire life being a Broncos fan, I can think of Champ Bailey in the 2005 divisional round, returning that interception that he caught from Tom Brady in the divisional round. And I think of Jake Plummer and that team. But when I think about when was it the best time to be a Broncos fan, it was, excuse me, sorry, I ate 2 grilled cheese sandwiches with like turkey in the middle and provolone cheese and I think too much butter. And I'm like burping because we're getting old. So anyway, when I think about the best time it was to ever be a Broncos fan, I have to say it was during the John Elway era, specifically the Peyton Manning era, because we were good every year that we had Manning. The only year that we weren't great, we won the Super Bowl. Go figure, right? So it was always a blast, but I will say his first season as a GM, I wrote a couple cliff notes here of my favorite things that he did. His first season as a general manager, he drafted Von Miller. Okay. So we know that worked out. Von Miller was taken at a Texas A&M with the 3rd overall pick. So right off the gate, that worked out. Then he found Chris Harris Jr., who is a great cornerback, and he ended up getting traded 3-4 years ago to the Chargers, the enemy. But he was undrafted. Okay, and then we put that team together. We got Aqib Talib. We brought in DeMarcus Ware to even get Von Miller that leadership, because he had the skill, but could he be that leader? Once we brought in DeMarcus Ware, he understood that. Brought in T.J. Ward. I'm trying to think. There was just so many people coming in, but he put a team together that was, I would say, that Broncos team was the best team in the NFL year after year after year. Now, they only won the Super Bowl once, but as I already mentioned, they won the Super Bowl in their worst year. The best teams don't always win the Super Bowl. Sometimes a team that, like, I think that Eagles team was better than the Chiefs. I really do. Did they win the Super Bowl? No, the Chiefs did. But I would say in 2012, Manning's first year, the Broncos were the best team in the NFL. And I can prove that because they lost in the divisional round by a Hail Mary in the final seconds of the game to Jacoby Jones, Joe Flacco to Jacoby Jones. And that Ravens team went on to win the Super Bowl. In year 2, with Peyton Manning, they lost to the Colts in the divisional round. I was at that game in person. And then guess what? The next year, they went to the Super Bowl and played the Seahawks. No. It was the Ravens year, then the Seahawks, then the Colts. Okay? So you have a team that has made the playoffs all 3 years, should have won the Super Bowl this year, went to the Super Bowl the second year, then lost to Andrew Luck the third year, and he fired John Fox. Now, it takes a lot to fire somebody that is successful. You know what I mean? Like, for John Elway to know, like, we are a scary team. We're contending for Super Bowls every year. But the fact that this much talent isn't winning a Super Bowl, John Fox, you're fired. To me, that is something that's extremely hard to do, right? It's hard not to get complacent and just say, you know what, we're a good team, and that's good enough. So they fired John Fox, hire Gary Kubiak, and they win the Super Bowl, and Manning retires. When I look back on John Elway's career as a general manager, I will think about that 4-year stretch where Peyton Manning was our quarterback. And Peyton Manning had his best season in 2013 when he threw 55 touchdown passes, broke the record that Tom Brady previously set at 50. And how much fun it was to see after that Ravens loss in the playoffs. They ended up playing the Ravens in the season opener, and Peyton Manning threw 7 touchdown passes in the revenge game. He said, you guys beat us in a Hail Mary. You won the Super Bowl. Next season opener, Ravens at Broncos, Manning throws 7 touchdown passes. Talk about revenge. It's sweet, man. It felt so good. We slept like a baby that night. But we can't really turn the page here. Actually, we got to be honest. We can't really turn the page here without talking about some of the negative things that happened with John Elway. The elephant in the room, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, couldn't draft a quarterback. Once Peyton Manning left, we drafted and recruited and traded for quarterbacks that consist of a list that goes like this, not in chronological order. However, I could do this. I just wrote them as I remembered them, but it went Trevor Siemian, and then I think it went Trevor Siemian, Brandon Allen, Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler, Joe Flacco, Case Keenum, Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater, Brett Rippon, Jeff Driscoll. That's a lot of quarterbacks, and not one of them worked out. He couldn't figure out the position that he was inducted into the Hall of Fame playing. And the Broncos are currently the longest playoff drought from winning a Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl in 2015 and haven't made the playoffs since. Longest playoff drought after a Super Bowl in history of the NFL. So, John Elway, cheers. I'm throwing a dip in for you. You are not going anywhere. I'm sure we're still going to see you on that camera, and I'll be live streaming those games, and I'll be sure to let everybody know how happy I am to see you there. Thank you for everything that you've done for the organization. Thank you for laying a foundation for me as a young child to be this attached to a team. And I don't think maybe it would have happened if you were never the quarterback to the greatest organization in sports. So I will finish with my favorite John Elway moment of all time after winning Super Bowl 50. Well, John Elway and Bill, I don't know if you know this, but he was going to retire and he was talked into coming back. Mike Shanahan, the father of Kyle Shanahan, said, "Hey man, like you should come back. You know, you've been to 3 Super Bowls, you haven't won any of them. You deserve to be a Super Bowl champion." And John Elway was like, "All right, I'll run it back one more time." He runs it back, he wins the Super Bowl. Pat Bowlen, and the best owner of all time, and most organizations agree. He took that Lombardi trophy, he looked at John Elway, and he said, I just got what was it? I just got 4 words." And he held up the trophy and went, "This one's for John," talking about John Elway, and handed it to him. And it was very clear that that moment wasn't about Pat Bowlen. Pat Bowlen was like a father figure saying, "John, you did it. This one's for you. Hold on to this. Savor it. You're a Super Bowl champion." And John Elway comes back the next year and wins again and then retires a back-to-back Super Bowl champion. So in 2015, when John Elway won, 2013, Pat Bowlen had to give up the ownership because he got dementia. His wife would tell him, "You're the owner of the Denver Broncos." He couldn't even remember. He didn't know. It's extremely sad story. And when they were at the Super Bowl, Pat Bowlen was not dead yet, but he wasn't even able to attend. That's how bad his condition was. He wouldn't remember people that he was around. So when the Broncos won the Super Bowl, John Elway was the first person they handed it to. And John Elway, just like Pat Bowlen said, "This one's for John," he held the trophy up and said, "I'm going to say this," and he wouldn't want me to, "but this one's for Pat." And that's what he's screaming right here in this picture. And that, by far, that story gives me chills every time. That by far is the greatest moment of being a Denver Broncos fan of my entire life. The foreshadowing, the years of waiting, the Pat Bowlen on a deathbed, that moment between John Elway as a son now, giving the father the trophy. Oh, man. John Elway will be missed. Trevor Lawrence, excited after throwing with Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley got in trouble for gambling. Bill, hell of a story, yeah. It's just such a great story. Trevor Lawrence was playing with I should probably word that differently. Trevor Lawrence was throwing balls to Trevor Lawrence was throwing footballs to Calvin Ridley. So there's still 2 weeks before the Jacksonville Jaguars begin their offseason program with voluntary workouts. So that'll be April 17th, but that hasn't stopped Trevor Lawrence from throwing with his newest target, Calvin Ridley, who was suspended all last year for sports gambling. Trevor said, "We have thrown together. I'm super excited." Obviously, none of this is at the facility because they could get fined. And that's a good thing. Calvin Ridley, off season, coming off of that suspension, the last thing you want to see is him at a club or, he's literally like, it was like Russell Wilson last year throwing to his teammates, taking vacations to get to know them. Tom Brady used to do that. So Calvin Ridley's already thrown with Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence is loving it. He said, "We're just excited to have him. He's going to be another piece for the offense and our team. And he's just a good guy that we're excited to bring into the locker room. It's going to be a lot of fun." So a great connection starting already with Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley. And I think that Calvin Ridley is going to go off next year. personally. He said, we've thrown together once, and I'm super excited. He said, we're just excited to have him. He's going to be another piece for the offense. And then he went on to say that prior to the suspension, Ridley announced in October 21 that he was stepping away from the Falcons to focus on his mental health. And then during I think his last game was in week 7, and he caught 4 passes, 26 yards. He goes on the mental health break, gets in trouble for gambling, gets suspended the entire 2022 season. So this is the first time we're going to see Calvin Ridley back since 2021. So I predict that things are going to go really well. The Jaguars have another playmaker on an already explosive offense. They were able to tag Evan Ingram, and now Christian Kirk and Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley with Ingram. That's 4 very capable pass catchers, and probably the best 4 wide receiver foursome of any ball club. I mean, it's up there with anybody. And Trevor Lawrence said it's huge bringing back Ingram. Was a big priority for us this offseason. So we have to have him back this year. Hopefully longer moving forward. That would be ideal. You saw what he did for us last season. You see Trevor Lawrence in this language, though, it's huge. Like, if I didn't tell you... oh, God, my mind's in the gutter today. If I didn't tell you, though, that this was Trevor Lawrence talking, who would you think that I'm referring to? Bringing back Ingram was a big priority for us this offseason. The general manager, Doug Peterson, the head coach? No, it's Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, just based on language, you can tell has become comfortable with being the face of the franchise. And Ginger goes, so sorry, everyone, I'm watching scary videos with my daughter. Make sure you show her the one where the guy's driving down the bendy road with the peaceful music, and then that thing jumps out at you. I'll send it to you if you don't have it. It was like early 2000s. But this language to me, I don't know if I'm the only one that picked up on this, but you could tell that Lawrence is comfortable with being the face of the franchise, and he's like the guy now. So I think that's a really good thing. Now, Peyton Manning's first year, he was 3-13. And I use Peyton Manning because Trevor Lawrence is going to be compared to Peyton Manning in my eyes forever. Okay? Because Mel Kiper had 3 quarterbacks that were ever graded as high as Trevor Lawrence was. Trevor Lawrence is one of them. John Elway was the second one. Peyton Manning was the third one. Andrew Luck was a little underneath. But when you look at the build of Trevor Lawrence, I see a lot of Peyton Manning in him. You know, doesn't really run. He can, but he's a pocket quarterback. He's a quarterback. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Justin Fields. He's not Jalen Hurts. He's a quarterback. And he's tall, and he reminds me of Peyton Manning. And he's in the AFC South like Manning was. So I'm going to do this comparison. Manning was 3-13 his first year, okay? His second year, he was 13-3. Then he was 10-6, and then 10-7. When I look at Peyton Manning, I see the progression of him getting better and better. And I think that Trevor Lawrence, I'm gonna say it right here for the first time. Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars are going to be between 10-7 and 13-4 next season. And they're gonna win the AFC South, and they're gonna play a really, really hard game against either the Chiefs or the Bengals to get to the AFC Championship game. And the Jaguars are capable of winning, no matter who they play. This Jaguars team is about to be a lot better because you got Trevor Lawrence taking the next step. Doug Peterson had a full year to implement his system. Calvin Ridley is going to be probably the number 1 target on this team. And, I mean, Jacksonville is just going to get a lot better this year. And they already won their division. Yeah, it was a weak division last year. But I know, Ginger, I know you're a huge Colts fan, but I don't see whoever the Colts draft there. It's not going to be anybody that's going to be like, oh, watch out for that guy. Unless they trade for Lamar Jackson, The Colts are going to have another season where it's going to be a building block. And there's nothing wrong with that. Last year, the Jaguars had a building block season, okay? And now they're on the other side of that, and they're ready to really hit the stars. So I think that when I look at the Texans, whoever they draft, it's not going to be as good as, Trevor Lawrence. And who are they going to draft? Probably Bryce Young, okay? Because I think CJ Stroud goes number 1 overall to the Panthers, and they're probably going to end up with Bryce Young. Bryce Young's going to, I don't think he's going to just like be amazing right away. I really don't. And plus, the Texans got a brand new head coach. Like, these are a lot of teams in the AFC South that are in transition. They are trying to get pieces that they can build on moving forward. Jacksonville's already on the other side of this. So Jacksonville wins their division easily. Tennessee, they fell apart. They had to fire their GM. They're trading. A.J. Brown, Tannehill's like, nah, whatever. I mean, he was good. He took his team to an AFC Championship 2 years ago, but we've seen people when it works, it works, but when it doesn't, it just doesn't. Tannehill's not that guy that is like, as long as I'm here, it's going to work. Tannehill's just, when it's working, it's great. Okay. And right now it's not really working. Derrick Henry, you just saw the owner come out and say, I don't know where all these rumors started. Derrick Henry's not for trade. We're keeping him. That's all fine and dandy, but Derrick Henry is probably, in my opinion, the best running back in the NFL. That's still not enough. It's not enough. So Tennessee, I think, is actually on the decline. And I think when you look at this division, I don't think Jacksonville loses to one team in this division next year. So that's 6 wins right off the bat. I mean, if you maybe one, so 5-1, but the path to getting a number 1 seed looks pretty good. So I'm going to pull up the opponents that Jacksonville is going to play next year, because I mean, opponents besides the AFC South. Jaguars opponents. Here it is. Tampa Bay, Chiefs. Okay, so they got some tough opponents in here. They got to play the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Bengals. Those are all they're probably going 1-2. Maybe they win one of those, but they're probably losing. Maybe even all 3. But then they got the Texans. Or I already did. That's the whole AFC South. They got the Falcons, the Panthers, the Ravens. Those are all 3 dubs. We don't even know who the Ravens are going to have at quarterback. The Saints, the Bucks, those are dubs. You got to understand too that the NFC South is a really weak division with the Panthers, Falcons, Saints, and Bucks. So that's 4 dubs. So add 4 dubs on top of the weak AFC South, and you're already at like a 9-1 team. And then they got the Steelers and the Browns. Those are probably wins too. You're at 11. So then, yeah, let's say they lose to Buffalo, the Bengals, 49ers, and the Chiefs. They're still, 11 and 12 and 5, 12 and 4. Ever since it went to 16 games, it's so hard for me to just bam. Because I used to just say 11 and 5, 10 and 6, 11 and 7. Sure, maybe it's or 11 and 6. I would say Jacksonville easily could go 11 and 6 next season. And I don't think that is, a big wild, thing to expect, but it might be for some people, because let's be honest, we're used to Jacksonville being bad for a long time. And Jacksonville's not bad anymore. And we saw even in that Chiefs game, they dropped that touchdown pass and went right through his hands. I don't remember if it was Zay Jones. And you saw that was a moment that you're playing the Chiefs, you can't have that. And then they were going to score to make it a 1-possession game with like 4 minutes left. And they had timeouts and they fumbled it on the goal line. Jacksonville had a chance to beat the Chiefs, and they very well could have. And they were in Arrowhead. Okay. So if Jacksonville, now that they've been there, they're calm, maybe they catch that ball. Maybe they run it in. Maybe they don't fumble at the end of that game. And maybe Calvin Ridley goes off. So Jacksonville, if you're a Jacksonville fan, this is a really, really fun season. This is a fun year to be a Jaguars fan. And living in Jacksonville from 8 years old to 17, I can appreciate Jacksonville being good because I got a lot of friends who go to these games and they've been cheering for a team for a long time that has not given anything back to them. And it's nice to see that Duval finally has something to be excited about. So that is my big three things for today. And the last thing I'll mention here, this just was released just a little while ago. Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill says he'll be Chiefs' worst enemy when he plays them in 2023. That's not the big news. This is the big news. Ready? Plans to retire after 2025. So, Tyreek Hill, a guy that's making a ton of money, highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, is calling it quits in 2 more seasons. So, well, after 2025. So when he's done with his current contract. So he's got 3 more years and then he's just going to leave. So that's kind of interesting. Now we've seen players that are really good abruptly retire. Andrew Luck, Aaron Donald almost did it last year. I mean, there's plenty of examples that I can't remember right now, but I can't remember a player that gave this far of a notice. Like, just so you guys know, I'm retiring in 2025 and I'll probably still be on my prime. I'll probably still be playing at a high level. So I find that really interesting and we'll see. Tyreek Hill at the end of the day, like, he's probably my age. He's probably 28 years old. And if there's one thing I know at this point in life is that we change our minds a lot in the span of 3 years. Tyreek Hill's age, he is 29. Yep, that's just what I expected. He was born March 1st. Same year as me, though. So you get March. So he's 5 months and 4 days older than me. Patrick Mahomes is younger than me. If I ever want to just feel like absolute dog shit, I just go look in the mirror and I tell myself that Patrick Mahomes is younger than me. And I feel really down about my accomplishments. It's crazy watching these players. Like, I used to think they were adults when I was a kid, and now I see them as kids. It's so weird. It's like I can't even pinpoint what year it switched. It's just like one day I woke up and I was like, oh, they're kids. And I'm not really sure when that moment happened for me, but you guys are all old, so you know what I'm talking about. Because when you're a kid, they're like grown-ass men. You know what I mean? Even 18-year-olds were like, you have a beard, you're a grown-up, period. You know what I mean? Now I'm a grown-up and I can't grow a beard. So I know it's not about facial hair. But yeah, Tyreek Hill to retire. Bill said, sounds like Tyreek has a good financial planner. Yeah, and maybe it's about I remember this moment, Bill. Remember this moment. Because this podcast, this isn't going anywhere. In 2025, we'll still be here and we will revisit April 5th, 2023. And when Tyreek Hill's at the Pro Bowl, he has his mic. And I don't know if you've ever seen those videos where they ask a question and then they like have their headphone mic. And usually it's like provocative questions like, worst guy you ever been with? Just like really quick fire, like headphone mic questions. Well, all through the Pro Bowl, Tyreek Hill was going up to like Ray Lewis. He was like, could you cover me? So this is my prediction. Tyreek Hill is going to be a media guy. And he's going to be very good at it. I think Tyreek Hill plans to retire when he's 2025 before he gets beat up too bad. And I think he plans on being very involved in sports media. And he's going to be up there with Ryan Clark and guys like that, but he's still going to be funny. Like, he's not going to be a serious media guy. He's going to be a, comedic relief entertainer type. So That's my bold prediction for Only Football with Kyle today. So I hope you guys enjoyed Only Football with Kyle. And tomorrow we got trivia. So I'm excited for that. I've enjoyed just coming back here and just being back in the studio. There's no place like home, there's really not. It's funny. It's like putting everything back exactly where it goes, the lights, the computer, the whole setup. You guys, do you see those 2 jerseys hanging behind me? There's a signed sweater and there's a Russell Wilson jersey. The reason that those are there is because I left my Broncos flag in California. So now I have to order a brand new Super Bowl 50 Denver Broncos flag, which I'm not happy about. But we will cross that bridge. And then actually, while it's story time, I'll mention this. That jersey right there, number 4, I had somebody that was a Broncos fan go, "Why do you have a Chiefs jersey in the background?" And I was like, "Dude, you're high. I would never have a Chiefs jersey back there." That jersey is Jerry Jeudy's high school jersey. Jerry Jeudy played at Deerfield Beach High School, which is where my dad lives. So my stepbrother goes to that school, went to that school, and he's in the Air Force now. Just graduated today. So give him a round of applause. But yeah, that is a unique jersey. And then when I go see the Broncos play live, I like to go to the season openers. I will have that jersey with me because I feel like if you're just waving out a Denver Broncos Jerry Jeudy jersey, you're one of a million, right? But if you put that jersey out there, that's going to catch his eyes and be like, this dude knows where I played high school ball. How'd you even get this jersey? And hopefully he'll sign it for me. And then you'll see an autograph on that number 4. And thanks, Bill. I'll let him know for sure. And yeah, so trivia tomorrow. Definitely stay tuned. Check that out. Hope you guys are enjoying the off season. We're bringing you all the news that we have. Obviously, it's the off season. There's a lot been going on, but at the same time, not a ton. We're kind of in that dry spot between the draft where free agency ends. The draft hasn't begun, but there's always going to be news to bring, and we're going to bring it. So if you guys are enjoying this channel, go ahead, like, subscribe, and notifications. So every time that we're going live, you guys know about it. You don't miss it, so you can interact with us live. And we appreciate you guys being here and being a part of the show and what we're trying to build here. So Bill, Jinja, all the mystery people watching, and everybody that watches after this was released. Thank you guys. Have a super, super good night. Bill saying love this offseason. The G-men are killing it. That's another team that kind of, I feel like they got a foundation. Now, what they do this season is going to be a huge indication on what the future holds, because they're definitely betting on your boy Danny Dimes, and I think he's earned the right to go out there and prove it. But they're gonna have to. We're gonna, it's kind of like fool me once, fool me twice, right? So go out there and do it. Win a playoff game against the Vikings, okay, but can you go do that again? Can you win a couple more games? Can you show that you're improving? And can you win at least one playoff game this year? I think that'll go a long way for not just Giants fans, but the way the entire NFL community looks at the Giants. So, all right, guys, that's all I got for you tonight. I'll see you guys tomorrow night for trivia. And until then, go Broncos. See ya.